Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the first Linux user group of what is this, March? Good Lord. This year's just flying by. So welcome to the first Linux user group of March 2025. We're gonna have a good one. We got a good topic for today. We're gonna have some fun. I believe we're gonna be talking about email in 2025. I hope I got that right. I looked at the poll earlier this morning. Yeah, that's one that won. All right, so I don't have much plan for this. Well, I guess what we'll start off with is what we're using now for email. So I will start first. I use probably like most people a combination of things. I have Proton for my personal stuff, and then I have Gmail for work because work is all Google Apps stuff. So that's basically where I'm at now. So what do you guys use? Remember to raise your hand when you want to go. Attend the tower. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just use Proton. I have a premium plan. I have set up some domains, some aliases. Just works for me.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Gnome, go ahead. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
I put my hand down instead of unmuting myself. I'm in the same boat. I also use Proton Pass and Gmail, but I also have custom domains that I use to route email to back to Gmail with, or Proton, whatever.
Good. Des, go ahead.
I use Gmail and for personal, and also I have some network accounts that are Gmail, and then I use CWU for the school I'm going to be possibly going to once I figure out how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Yeah, I use Vivaldi Mail because I'm a Vivaldi show. Call me whatever you want.
That's your
And
client. What do you use for your service?
no, Vivaldi Mail.
So
Vivaldi.net. Webmail.vivaldi.net.
you are a shill.
Well, I got they offered it to me when I first started using Vivaldi, so I was like,
Good lord.
why not? And I use Google for Workspaces, webmail in my web browser. I don't use a client ever. Will never touch a client because I've been through that rabbit hole, and I ended up coming out the other end all dirty and musky and musty and smelling like doo doo. So I just use the browser, and I don't use the email option feature of Vivaldi because the way I set it up was as a browser only. But I do use Vivaldi Mail because some services refuse to accept anything related remotely related to Google. So for those services, I use Vivaldi Mail, and for work, I use Vivaldi Mail. So Vivaldi.net. If, in case you didn't know, Vivaldi does have a webmail service. So I recommend it to everyone because it doesn't it filters a lot of spam very well. Dare I say better than Gmail. So there you go. That's what I use.
Fraggle, go ahead.
Yeah, I use Disroot mostly, but then I got the one that's provided by my ISP as well, for personal or family stuff like that. I don't know if your guys' ISPs provide email services or not, but mine definitely does. And then just like a couple throwaway like Gmails because it's easy when you're trying out new services or anything like that to just be like sign in with Google, and I never have to look back if I'm not going to use that thing ever again. It doesn't matter because it's just Gmail. I like the feature with Gmail too that if you're signing up or if you want to sign up, and a lot of sites support it. Some sites block it, but if you use like your base address, say fraggle at gmail.com, if I do like a +1 or a plus Facebook or a plus whatever before the @ sign, then it essentially creates like a new email that just reroutes everything to that base email. It's really good for, signing up for, 6-month trials, indefinitely. So yeah, Gmail has its uses. But yeah, other than that, it's disroot.org and yeah, ISP.
I don't think I've ever heard of Disroot. But my ISP does offer email services, and in order to pay your bill, you have to have one. They won't accept anything for their accounts but their own ISP based email address for whatever reason. It's literally the only thing I have one for.
Yeah, Disroot has a lot of other services too, not just email. And they have like kind of limited spaces on those services, like Git and Nextcloud and stuff like that. But you could pay for if you want to expand those as well. But for a client, I usually use Neomut because I'm a terminal junkie. So
And we can give some shout out to some clients a little bit later. That'll be something fun to do. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, real simple. I've got my long existing Yahoo Mail, which I've had since Yahoo started, and then Gmail, and I just started with Proton. Real simple stuff. I don't do a business through it or anything, so my needs are pretty simple. So I won't do an ad like Steve or Vivaldi.
My mom uses Yahoo too, so I spend a lot of time helping her with that stuff. She has like 12 Yahoo accounts, and they just did an update, and she hates it. Like they just changed the UI. Apparently, she just totally hates it. Gnom, go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in there when Fraggle, like say, Fraggle or gmail.com or Fraggle plus Netflix or Fraggle plus Domino's, whatever. You can also do f.raggle or fr.agg or any combination. You can put periods inside of your username, and you can also filter incoming emails. And this way you can sort out suspected spam, so on and so forth. It's great built-in filters. Gmail.
Okay, so my next question for everyone here is, it doesn't sound like anybody's actually self-hosting like their email client or their email servers. Has anybody done that in the past? And what were your experiences if you've done so? Steve, go ahead.
I knew you were going to ask about self-hosting. Yes. What's it called? Nextcloud Mail. When I first tried Nextcloud, I tried email extension or whatever add-on plugin of Nextcloud. It was a horrendous experience. So for whatever reason, I was able to send email, but never receive email. Even we were setting up No Text Allowed podcast, Josh and I and what's his name? My head, my
Big
brain.
Pod.
Big Pod. Thanks. We were setting up the thing, and I was supposed to receive an email. I never received it to be part of the thing, so I gave it up right there and then, and never went back. But I did attempt Nextcloud Mail, and that was as far as I went with self-hosting. I guess since I am now part of the self-hosting group with DB Tech. I need to try another one just for the sake of having content, because we need content for the channel.
Right. Gnom, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a couple of years back. I think I was doing a Dovecot. It was the mail server I was going to use. I spun that up, got everything all set up, and I had internal mail working on the LAN, but I couldn't reach the outside network, and come to find out Comcast won't allow SMTP servers. They block the port entirely because of mail forwarding, and there's so much spam on the SMTP network that Comcast just flat out won't allow it. And even if you self-host, you have to use a third party to sign your DKIM. And if I have to, why am I using a third party if I'm self-hosting? I'll just use a web server, mail provider. It was too much hassle.
Yeah. Des, go ahead.
I used to use a couple of Mandriva Linux 2010.1 servers a few years ago when that operating system was already quite old. And I would do it for internal mail, but not external mail, so that I didn't need to set up DNS to do anything or anything. And but I quit because the software was pretty old, so I quit doing that.
Okay. Drew, go ahead.
I just want to make clear on Steve's Nextcloud mail. I think that's just a client, dude. And it's not actually like an actual server, like Mail Cow email server or Mail in a Box mail server. It's just a like a web client is all. By the way, I'm using Proton as well as far as personal stuff. I have a Proton family account, which allows me a number of different type of, I think it's 3 domains, or I think it's 3 domains that you can use, as well as Gmail for work. And I think I've got like 3 or 4 people in the last few days on Proton Mail, which is great. So I will provide a referral link so that I get paid for anyone choosing Proton Mail.
On that account, Drew, I'm astonished at how well that referral link works, because mine too has, after I did my video on it, just had a
Yeah.
ton of people sign up for. What pisses me off about it is it's like $90 total. Like that's
Yeah, I
all
know.
you can do. I wish it was like $90 a year. That'd be cool. That'd be
Oh, I
awesome.
thought it was $90 per. Okay, yeah, maybe
From
I'm
the way
wrong.
I might be wrong, but the way I read it was just $90 total. That's all you can get.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah, I know. Like that's I'm there. I'm ready for the next year already, but it's not the way that it apparently
Yeah.
works. But yeah. A lot of people are really interested in the Proton thing. The alias thing that you pointed me towards, I've been using that now, and it is really, really good. It doesn't, you don't have to do any of that stuff like signing up for extra stuff for
Oh my
Gmail
gosh.
and adding in the periods or whatever. You just say, hey, give me a alias, and boom, it's good.
Yeah.
You know.
So what Matt is talking about, for those that are interested, if you have your Proton Mail, and you're paying for it, you have Proton Pass, and in Proton Pass, you can simply, like, if you're signing up for just kind of a throwaway type of account, you just go into your Proton Pass. It will fill something from, like, like a simple type of login that you can then just delete once you start getting like ridiculous mail on that account. And it's so worth it. So worth these kind of like throwaway alias mails that go to your inbox. But after a while, you just say, "Yep, nope, I don't want that anymore," and you just delete it, which is great.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, it's like game changing. Every service should have it. But there's no way Gmail's ever doing it. It's just, it would be counterproductive to their thing. Des, go ahead.
I just forgot to say that for my accessing my email, I was then using a combination of usermin as far as the webmail, and I was using Outlook mostly 2003 through that period, because at that point for my client I was still on Windows.
Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I know Drew, but that I got introduced to Nextcloud Mail through Nextcloud, and that's what I tried for whatever reason, because of the workspaces thing. It wasn't working. And as far as what Matt said, There is yes way Gmail will do it, but you have to pay them for it. But because since once you pay for Google for Workspaces, you can create as many aliases as you want. I already have like 20 or 30.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I use to get past the limitation, the token limitation on Cursor AI.
it, but the aliases in Google Apps, you have to go into Gmail, create them, then go back to the service, right?
Yeah, you have to go to the
Y-
admin
Yeah,
panel
with
of Gmail for Workspace.
Proton, it just if you especially if you have Proton Pass, it just say, hey, would you like to create an alias? We see you're creating a new account. Would you like to use this email address instead of your real one? And boom, it goes, and it's just so much easier to
Oh,
delete
okay,
and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
If you think
automated.
about it this way, yeah, no way Gmail will do it that way. But if you're willing to go into the admin panel and create your aliases, I already did those, so I already have those. So I'm still I only used 5 or 6 so far, but I'm gonna keep using them because I want to get past the token limitation on Cursor AI. I'm not gonna pay them.
Yeah. So, for me, when it comes to email, the question I think we should lead into next, now that we have the services stuff down, is how much do we actually, I mean, outside of work, because I mean, we probably all use it for, or at least most of us use it for work. When it comes to personal stuff, how much do you actually still use email? Because with the advent of like social media, Discord, WhatsApp, various messaging things, iMessage, stuff like that, is email still as prevalent in your life as it was, say, 10 years ago? Um, because for me, it's it feels to me more and more my email is just a conduit to commercial interactions. So, I get email from companies that are trying to sell me things, or for things that I've signed up for that I pay for, whatever. Very rarely do I get something from regular old people. Now, I get some for like the podcast or whatever, but that's, maybe 2 or 3 a week. The rest of them are almost exclusively commercialized stuff. And almost all of it I could do without, other than like seeing the random receipt for things that I've bought, the rest of it is just like basically it could be qualified as spam. Uh, Steve, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that no, yeah, you're right. I am in the same boat as you. Email is just what I use for different social medias and whatever requires an email. But as far as sending emails to family and private personal stuff, no, I don't use it. We don't even send snail mail anymore. We just use a service that apparently in the U.S. is not very much used, but it's called WhatsApp. We just call each other over WhatsApp or message each other over WhatsApp, and that's it. We don't need to send email back and forth privately.
Okay. Drew?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a difference here. I mean, if this is if you're like talking to family members or friends and stuff like that, I think that email is kind of like gone in terms of that. I mean, I think, I'm old. And so when you're talking about like 20 somethings or, teens or even into 30-year-olds, they're texting, they're simply like messaging in some way, shape, or form. But when you're talking about work, that's a lot different in terms of, I mean, we have a document retention policy, basically. For those of you that work with, and you're working and email is a big part of your work, you want to have a record of interactions. And so that is an important an important distinction for work. I think email is essential because of the type of document retention policy that companies have in terms of, interactions. For friends and family, no, not at all. I mean, I don't see how that's even relevant anymore.
Yeah, for my job, we have a lot of that stuff too. But even I've noticed over the course of the last couple of years, I worked for this place for 7 years, 8 years now, something like that. And over the course of that time, we've used email less. So they've started up a Slack. We use Slack for a lot of stuff now. Um, They thought about moving to Teams, but they don't do 365. They're Google Apps solely. So email has fallen down for my work quite a bit, but they still do use it for like when like you're right, like official things that have to be well documented. It's almost always through email because Slack just it just flows right on by, and you can't yeah, it's probably still there, but oh, let's just scroll back for 6 months and see if we can find it. It's just not. It's not the way to it's going to work. So, Antenna Tower, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, Matt. Even at my job, we use Microsoft Teams, and even for files and such, we use Microsoft SharePoint. So even for my job, we barely use email anymore. Mostly just Teams and chatting apps.
I don't know about you, but it feels like we've moved from one silo, which is email, to a lot of times another silo where we're all like either your company is going to be a full-on Office 365 place or your Google Apps. Those are the two places where the businesses seem to have gone. Now, granted, like I said, I've worked for my place for a long time, so I don't have a lot of experience with other companies. But from the people that I've talked to, a lot of them aren't hosting their stuff like that on prem anymore. It's all cloud services that they subscribe to through Microsoft or Google.
Oh yeah,
So
I think that's mostly the case. Yeah, just Teams, Microsoft Teams, Slack.
yeah,
I don't know if that's much better, honestly. It's
yeah,
kind of garbage.
yeah. I don't know either because it does put a lot of a reliance on obviously those companies. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce your name. You're next. Sorry. Tell me how you pronounce your name.
Hi, my name is Paridhi.
Okay. Go.
So regarding what Matt was talking about earlier with Proton Pass, you can get the same functionality on Bitwarden. You just have to get the addy.io API key. So how it works is every time you use Bitwarden to sign up for a website, uh, it will automatically generate an email address and a password as well. Also, it's better than Google aliases because you can also like not have companies like circumvent it with plus aliases from Google. I have seen companies remove the plus XYZ part from that, and then they will keep your regular email address.
Yeah, I had known about the Bitwarden, but they just added that feature when I moved to Proton Pass. It's cool that they've added that though. It's Bitwarden is a really good service if you're not interested in paying for something like Proton Pass, or you want to self-host because Vault Warden I believe will do it as well.
Isn't
Yeah. Also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Once also with Bitwarden and Addy, the combination if you put it's basically free unless you reach a certain limit of bandwidth. After that, it's $12 a year, and you'll also get to use custom domain with that $12. So you can have something like discord at the rate mat.org or something like that,
Yeah,
which is very very neat.
yeah, very good stuff. Antenna Tower, go ahead.
I thought Proton Pass was also free. Is it not? I think it is. They just put a cap on how many folders you can create, I think.
I honestly I don't know. Because
Because I
I
used
don't
it
think I've
before
ever
I
used
paid.
the free version of Proton. So,
Yeah, I think it's free. It's free. Yeah.
okay, then
I think
maybe go ahead.
sorry. I think the aliasing is. I think there is a limit to the number of aliases you can create or something, or maybe it's not. The alias part is not free, but in general, Proton Pass is free.
Okay,
Yeah, they have a cap on the number of aliases. That's right.
that makes sense. Okay, Drew, go ahead.
So I guess it's a question more than a comment because we don't use Slack nor do we use Microsoft Teams. So I guess the question is that more for internal usage or as opposed to, something outside the company? Because, I was thinking in terms more of the face that you have towards other people outside of your organization. So for that, I mean, I think email still is essential. I mean, at least from my perspective.
For me, I don't deal with a lot of that stuff, so it's harder for me to answer. Most of my stuff is dealt with internally, so that's what we use Slack for. Um, but I'm assuming that the couple of guys ahead of me probably, yeah, they use email when they want to do stuff outside of, because none of the Slack is for anyone else. It's just for the team members. And then we have a bunch of rooms or whatever for various things that we need, and that's just all team members there. So yeah, email is probably where you go for out stuff, but luckily so far I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. That's why I didn't really think about that. Gnom, go ahead.
I have a question and a comment combined, I guess. I used to use Slack for internal communication when I was tutoring, and they had Slack would charge you like a monthly premium to look back in your message history more than 30 days. Do they still do that?
I can't answer that because we pay for it, so I don't know what the free
So you
version
just
is.
get it by default, yeah.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong. I probably am, but I feel like you had to pay for a premium for the room to get like the special features and everything. And then if you wanted that message history, the end user had to also pay a subscription, I think, but I'm probably wrong.
I mean, no, it wouldn't surprise me that they nickel and dime everything. I'm honestly not sure. Like I said, I don't do any of that, but maybe somebody else knows. But I'm sure, because it's not like where with Microsoft you subscribe to 365 and you get basically everything. Slack just has Slack. So they're gonna make money however they need to make money, I guess. Des, go ahead.
Email is still pretty relevant right now. Sorry, I was looking away from the camera because I was looking at this thing. But yes, email's pretty relevant for me still.
So I guess the question I have next is, what are the problems you think email has, and do you think that there are solutions for those problems? So, for just I'll just go first. There's no obvious and easy way. Excuse me. Let me take that back. There's no easy way to enable like end-to-end encryption. So like PGP obviously exists, and for nerds it's easy to use. Regular people never going to touch that. And in order for that to work, both ends have to participate in that process, right? Both the sender and the receiver have to have their PGP stuff ready to go and able to decrypt it and everything, right? Now, some services have tried to, like Proton, become more secure and enable encryption and stuff like that. But once your email leaves Proton servers and goes to Gmail, it's no longer going to be encrypted because it's just not the way that it works. So the ability to secure the emails, I think, is the biggest problem, because there's no easy way to do it across multiple email providers without teaching everyone how to use PGP, which is not something that has, at least so far, has happened. Steve, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what you just said. It takes two to tango, as they say. And so far, very few do, if any. And another problem with email is the amount of spam. The moment you create an email, you don't have to give it to anyone. Like, for example, here where I'm from, you go to, like, I go to outlet malls a lot because we're cheap like that. To purchase clothes or shoes or whatever. Well, a few days later, we start being barraged with emails from them. How they got my email, I got no clue, but we all know, have an idea that your data are belong to us. So basically, as soon as you enter anywhere, any store, you start receiving emails, and there's not a single service that is 100% strong at blocking spam emails, stop advertising emails like that, unless you have to. They force you to fork out the money to get a strong enough spam filter. But that's another inherent problem with email.
Gnome, go ahead. And pardon the dog in the background.
I would like to combine both of your topics and also say that the part of problem with email is just inherently how the internet is. Like, you can do typo squatting and domain hijacking, and you can send emails that look like they're coming from someone when really they're just one letter off. It's like, oh, I trust this person, and really it's just some random person. It's usually going to be a phishing email, security, spam. It's all kind of tied into one, I think. And it's hard to stop that because, again, domain squatting and typo squatting, it's inherent with the internet. You just got to be aware, mostly, is how we would fix it. Educate the end user.
Well, the solution is PGP. I mean, because PGP gives you identity detection and everything like that, but it's so inefficient and non-user friendly to do that it's just never going to happen, right? Go ahead.
Well, okay, so I agree with the PGP. That's a great idea for communications you've already established. But what if you're trying to set up a business contact and they don't have your pre-shared key or your pre-shared password? There's no communication thus far. So you have to accept unencrypted emails to establish communication. And once you establish it, then you can go PGP from that point forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. The thing is for me that I've thought about this quite a bit over the course of the last few years. It's just that email, because of the way the standard was built, it has aged both well and not well. So obviously it aged well in that people still use it, and they have been able to tack onto it to have certain features that Google adds their AI stuff, and Proton has added end-to-end encryption in between themselves, but it's still just email at the bottom, and a lot of that is inherently 80s tech. So it has all the problems that kind of technology has with it, and it's one of the reasons why when we come back to the self-hosting thing earlier is that if you self-host, a lot of times the emails that you send won't be accepted by certain email providers because they don't recognize where it's coming from. So they want you to use the biggest email providers out there in order for you to actually have them receive your mail. Now, I haven't had that problem with Proton, but I've heard some people say that even Proton itself is blocked by certain email providers because it's just not big enough. So that they're looking at, only accepting Gmail and Outlook and Yahoo probably. Like I said, I haven't had that problem with Proton, but I know for a fact that some people who self-host have that issue, especially with their own domains and everything else like that. So in order to actually get that to work, I think you were talking about this a little bit earlier, where things were just, it's such a pain to self-host that you have this problem. And I think that one of the reasons why we have so many, it's just so damn easy to set up a Gmail account that creating a spam account just to send out, thousands of spams, you might get caught, but you can just sign up for another Gmail account. So you just set up a bot to do that. And that's the reason why you can get all these emails from, everybody that causes these issues. So it's the malware and virus thing. Like, yeah, we do all these security measures and stuff, but the bad guys continue to iterate and, continue to get better over time as well. And it's just a whack-a-mole kind of thing. So it's obviously a hard thing to fix. So, I guess the next question that I have to ask is, do you foresee a future where email actually isn't the biggest or one of the most prevalent ways of communication? Like, obviously letters have fallen by the wayside. So the horse and buggy also left eventually. So somewhere along the line, the future is going to future. So, Steve, what do you think the future holds when it comes to this stuff?
Email will still be relevant, but it will no longer be relevant when it comes to individual discussions, but companies will continue to use email and will continue to make it better for companies. When money is exchanging hands, this will get better. I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. But when it comes to individuals, yeah, it's going to go by the wayside, and nobody is going to be using email, especially services nowadays. They're using different types of authentications or account creations. Like Apple was the first to do that. They started using IDs and stuff like that to self-identify or to create accounts and whatnot, that they will send you verification to your device and different ways of creating accounts. That's why email will disappear when it comes to individuals, but for companies, like Drew said, it's going to be to keep records, and that's the most important thing to companies. They're going to keep using it, and they're going to keep making it more solid as time goes by, just because they want your data. That's mainly the reason. But for individuals, no, I don't see it continuing beyond maybe 10, 20 years from now.
Ganam, go ahead.
I think it'll probably stay relevant in business for quite a while. I hope the protocol updates, we get some more security measures or something. Like, we've been talking about security a lot. Like, it's really old. Everything's pretty much sent in plain text. If there was some kind of way of encrypting, even if you could share a key with, say, your email provider, this way they could store your email encrypted in a database, and you have a pre-shared key with your email provider, whatever. But I think, we're in this new era, a new age. It seems like they're testing implanting chips in people and like almost cyberpunk dystopia. If that's the case, I feel like we're probably going to have in the next probably 20 years some sort of paging device that's like email. We're able to just, we can receive emails in a pager in our arm or something. I don't know. I give it 20 years though, I see.
My luck is mine would have a short in it every time I got an email. Des, go ahead.
I think with the future coming up, we're going to have, in the near future, we're going to just, if it's not already here, we're just going to be overwhelmed with communication choices. Some of us, anyway, overwhelmed with it. And, but I do think snail mail letters will pretty much go away, except for things like packages and that sort of thing. And if you choose to still send it by snail mail, it'll probably just be insanely expensive, and everybody will use email instead of doing that. For like all your bills and things like that, you'll just use email, and you'll be lost without email, is what I think.
It's possible. Fraggle, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not saying much different than everybody else has said. But I think even still, on a personal level, like individually, email still has its usefulness and everything like that. There's not very many things left outside of email where you can send, receive, or, have communications that can't be edited after the fact. And that's I think one of the good things about emails is that once you've sent that email, that's it. You've written what you've written. You can't undo. You can't change, posts anywhere else. Pretty much everywhere has an edit button now. And sometimes you can see those edits and sometimes you can't. But email, you never have that option. So I hope that something maybe newer or different, or like Gnome said, the protocols get updated and stuff like that. Just for some additional out of your hands type of security measures that your typical person would benefit from. Ones that really don't understand PGP, or setting up pre-shared keys and stuff like that. Because the folks that do know how to do that and can do that, great. The people that don't, they're never going to, you know what I mean? Unless they have an interest in it and want to pursue it, they're just not going to bother with it ever. So something that kind of provides that feature for those types of users, I think would be a great improvement. So
yeah. So the problem with the whole security thing is that the vast majority, I don't know about the vast majority, but a lot of people use Gmail. And the same problems apply to Yahoo and Outlook or whatever. So in order for email to be secure, they have to encrypt it. But if they do encrypt it, they lose access to all of the data that they control in order to give you advertisements. So it's not in their interest to move the standard along in order to create better security. And in order for better security to happen, Gmail has to do it. It has to come from Google first. It's just that's not in their interest, unfortunately. Drew, go ahead.
So there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
In terms of, let me go back to what Gnome was saying as far as phishing and things like that. Now, let's just say, for example, the phishing email came from PayPal-service.com or something like that. Okay. It is in PayPal's best interest to be aware of these types of things. And then two things, and I've been a part of both actually, where you report this to somebody, some type of cyber squatting unit, whether it be in the US, it's going to be the FBI. If you're away overseas, it's going to be Interpol. But more than that, you can actually attack them using what is called a UDRP. Okay. And that is basically it's a protocol that ICANN came up with. I don't know if anybody knows what ICANN is, but ICANN is kind of like the governing body for domain names. And so you can go after them using a UDRP and try to get them to relinquish that domain name. The problem with that is many of these are in countries where it's unenforceable, with registrars that are completely unenforceable. If you get lucky enough, and plus it takes a lot of time, effort, and money to go through the UDRP process. Now, I've had to defend a UDRP before, and it is not fun, but never lost either. I've never lost one of these types of like one of these cases either, which is ridiculous. A lot of these are just nuisance type things, and it makes things really hard on like legit domain owners when somebody is phishing using one of your domains and you have no recourse. Okay. Or something similar to one of your domains and you have no recourse. Sorry. So as far as email and the longevity of email, there's a universality and a ubiquity with email right now where I don't see anything changing in the near future. I don't know in my lifetime. And I think there's a reason. There's you have, to Steve's point, there's WhatsApp is huge overseas, huge. But that's proprietary and not everybody uses it, but maybe they do. I don't know. I mean, they've got like 2 billion people using WhatsApp overseas. But then there's also things that we need in terms of account recovery and 2-factor authentication, where you need that kind of like digital footprint. And email a lot of times is the value that you need in order to have a long-term digital identity. Social media accounts and things like sometimes people abandon their emails, and that's but not a lot, I guess. But so you need that long-term digital identity for two-factor authentication, identity verification, recovery, and things like that. Last thing, I'm sorry. In the business world, I think two things are going to happen with regard to email. AI is going to be a major part of both receiving and sending email. And so people that are customer service may not be that first line of support any longer, where there will be chat bots. And we've seen it already. There's chat bots, and then there are AI responders that simply get these emails and send you back a response based on absolutely nothing other than the model that they're using and the keywords in the question that you are now asking. So, and not to mention, if you get lucky enough, if you're looking for support online and you get a chat interface, sometimes you don't know if it's a person or not, and it's kind of like, lucky if you do. But AI-driven email management is going to be very, very big in the coming years.
Well, and they've been.
I kind of unloaded there.
No, that's fine. AI is a good thing, a good topic to talk about, because I know we just covered it on a podcast, but the thing is, like, with general AI, like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, they've been trolling the entire internet. So, and that obviously leads to both its benefits and its problems. But for like a support AI bot, they can narrow down the training on the AI to just their topic, right? So they've been collecting data. So they've recorded every phone call we've ever had with support for 20, 30 years. So they record all those. They probably can have transcripts of those things made. They've obviously been receiving all the email, both sent and received, from their end and from their customers' end. So they can train on that data, so that when they move to the AI stuff, it's more focused in on what needs to be supported instead of just a gigantic dump of the entire internet. And I think that that's very interesting. I also think that it would have a problem with questions that have never been asked before, because that would happen every once in a while. But it could also, at least the questions that have always been asked, could lead to better customer support in some ways, because if the question has already been asked, they obviously know the answer and they can just send it automatically instead of having to reroute you to someone who is just going to regurgitate something. Like for example, had to call HP support, and when I called HP support, I could tell that the guy who was helping me knew nothing about the computer. He was just responding from a manual, and like, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? It was just basically doing a checklist. There's no reason why an AI can't just do that. I mean, I know there's obviously big privacy implications and stuff there, but I think that, I mean, not to lose someone their job, but AI could do it. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot to unravel here, especially that my job was at Apple was transcribing mainly, but yeah, the data is there, and today they're feeding it to AI in a big way, because, as you said, Matt, there's not one time I called support, be it ISP support, be it phone support, landlines. Yeah, we still use landlines. So when you have the feeling that they know nothing about what they're talking about. They're reading off of a manual. And when I was at Apple, they were actually forced to read a script, because if they went away from that script, every word they said outside the script, they were charged. Their salary was deducted a certain amount in cents. But make enough of these mistakes, they become tens of dollars, if not hundreds of dollars. But this is something that now AI can do with ease. Just give it the subject, and it will know how to reply because the data is there. So I don't. This is what's going to happen to email, as Drew said. It's going to be autoresponders by AI, and AI is getting smarter and smarter and smarter the more we advance. So there will be, and even when you call, I have the feeling with the voice training that they're doing these days, because a while back, my brother sent me a 2-minute audio clip of myself talking. He just required 30 minutes of me talking. He just took 30 minutes worth of videos from my channel, fed them to AI, and he generated a complete fake version of me, a clone of me. And it had all my mannerisms, all my mispronunciations, all. So I thought I was the one who created the video that I didn't remember. So even with that, you're gonna, even when you call, you might end up talking to an AI without even knowing. So email is the same thing. So when you send emails, it's gonna continue the email conversation via chatbots and email bots. That's how I see it. But like Drew said, we will still need email for some digital footprint for services. But like I said, again, since I was working for Apple, I saw it happening where you can register an account, recover an account on any service using other means than email. Apple advertised this a while back, but then they went silent on it. I don't know why, but I think it's they were doing something right for once. But we still need to wait and see how far they will take it. But if they don't take it anywhere, email will still be required for services, if not. Because here in the Middle East, in Africa, in a lot of continents, WhatsApp is the number one app. WhatsApp and Telegram are the two most commonly used apps for communication.
Drew?
Yeah, as far as email, let me just I kind of got off on a tangent about AI, but I did want to say what Gnome was talking about in terms of like spam and phishing. It is completely on providers to continuously improve security risks by using DMARC and SPF and DKIM and things like those services, and those need to improve even further in terms of eliminating a lot of these like challenges by using email and securing that protocol. In terms of PGP, I hope that providers are getting more and more like interested in that end-to-end encryption, because I think it's vital for the security of the web and email. I don't, again, to your point, Matt, I don't know that Gmail does that at any point, but it behooves them to at least attempt to become a more secure provider of email services. I had something else, but now I can't remember what the third thing was going to be.
That's
Oh,
okay.
by the way, I'm using, I don't know if I know that WhatsApp and Discord and Signal and Matrix. I'm using Signal more, and I really like that service. It's open source. I don't know if anybody else is using Signal, but I think it's really good. So
The thing about, I think that in order for email to take a really significant step forward in terms of security and spam, even spam detection, because Google makes money on spam, right? Like they can still troll all that information, and get a lot of information based on the spam that you received in order to monetize you. So, while I do think that they have done they have done a job. I don't know whether or not you can consider it a good job of spam detection, making spam tools available. The whole, encryption thing is just going to be really hard for them because of the way that they make money. But I do think that in order for that to change, Gmail kind of has to die, and not necessarily like go away, but there has to be a situation where people get so fed up with something regarding Gmail, like there's a big hack or something goes wrong security wise that makes people look and say, oh my goodness, this isn't secure, in order for them to then go use something like Proton or whatever it is, and then that would spur Google to actually make their thing secure. But until that happens, I don't think that they have the incentive to really do it. Maybe they'll make some fluffy promises or something like that where it doesn't, they say it's going to be secure, where they came out like that. Remember that ad thing that they tried to come out with where they were going to fingerprint every website or every person or whatever in order to feed them specific ads, but it was going to be the most private thing ever in order to do it. I don't remember. It was like mflop or floppy or something like that. And everybody knew it was BS. So maybe they do something like that, but I don't know that they ever truly take on security without something kicking them in the balls first. Gnome, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to mostly agree with Drew on all the email stuff. And with SPF, yeah, the sender policy framework is there. However, it's only up to the email providers and your ISP to implement the new versions. They're not developing the new versions. And our email is our online identity. Like we talked about, you sign into all your services, Gmail, Facebook, whatever. Without having your online identity, you may have a custom domain. That may be your domain online identity. Like say thelinuxcast.org or .com or something. And without those, what are we going to identify ourselves by? A video call or an IP address? Like your email is your online identity. So we kind of need some kind of basis to keep our identity online.
Yeah. So the perfect online identity tool is impossible to implement because we missed the boat, and that is like at birth, everyone is assigned their own domain name. This is your domain name, you own it. It is assigned to your social security number or your personal identification number or whatever. At birth, they're tied together, and you could use technology then to verify and everything because you have all the information. Just like when you want to verify like Google Analytics or whatever, you go put a piece of code in the header file basically in order to verify that you own the website. Something like that. Now, obviously, that's way more technical than probably would end up being because they'd have to make it user friendly. But that boat has since sailed because everybody owns all the domain names. So the names are just gone. So you can't do it that way. So there has to be another solution, and email is the one that we have right now. I don't know. It's one of the reasons why we don't have online voting really well, because there's no good way to actually verify identities, and email is just not good enough. There's a reason why. Yes, we started off when we had two-factor authentication. We had that with email, and we still have that as like a backup. But almost everyone has moved to an authenticator application or passkeys or whatever it is, right? So they've since realized that even email isn't the best way of identifying, having an identifying second factor. It's just a way, and it's more of a backup than the best solution. And I think that over time, that stuff's all going to we're almost certainly going to move to three-factor authentication, where you kind of have to do it in three different places. There's that old trick where if you want to identify a location of somebody, the best way to do it is with 3 points or whatever. That is just going to eventually be the way that it's going to end up happening, because there's no perfect solution. Email's not it. The other 2FA things aren't it. Gnome, go ahead.
I completely agree. There's probably going to be with a three-factor thing, like a token, one-time password, and then a physical access key that you would also have to plug in. And there's only one website that I know of that ties I guess like your SSA or IRS would also use your social, but I think ID.me is for prior federal employees and whatnot, like, service members, and you can get deals with them. But I believe you put in, I don't remember how I signed up. It might be your old DD 214 or your social or something, but they look up your service record. And if you weren't a member, then you can't join and whatnot. So there is like a proof of identity in that website, but that's exclusive to prior service or federal. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, there are. So like if you were to apply, so I used to do freelancing for, it was something before Upwork, but whatever, I think it was like Encore or whatever, it was something like that. In order to actually have an account there and be verified, in order to get jobs, you have to literally be on a call someone and show them your driver's license in order to confirm your identity. Um, that's probably the most perfect way of identifying, if you have a system where people actually have physical identification. But it's not scalable. Like there's 8 billion people on the planet. We can't do that, right?
I think I did that for my CompTIA because I took mine during the heat of COVID and I had to identify at home. So I held my ID up to the camera and then, put the ID down, and I took the laptop and showed it around the room. Like, they were pretty thorough about it.
Well, I mean, and on top of that, you also there has to be a trust factor on with the person on the other side, right? They have to, not only do they have to be trustworthy in that they're not going to just steal your identity, but they also have to, be able to recognize when, like, I mean, it's the whole barman's thing. Like, kids coming up with an identification, you just hand it, hey, yeah, sure, I'm 21, I can drink, So I mean, as hard as it is to spot a fake ID in person, it'd be much harder to do, over this really, this 920 or whatever Logitech webcam that I have. You're not gonna be able to see the stuff that they do do counterfeit stuff. So the identity verification thing, like, what you guys remember back when Elon was thinking about buying Twitter right before he did, one of the things that he wanted to do in order to get rid of bots was to make sure everyone had an absolute identity in order to have an account. That obviously has gone by the wayside since he moved on to being the president. But that type of thing has been floated around for a very long time. It's just that there's no good and perfect actual solution to do it. Go ahead.
Well, Dark Zero brought it up earlier. He said somebody copied his voice into 30-minute YouTube videos. We're not quite there yet, but if say I have a really bad quality camera, like 720 is pushing it, 460p camera. Who's to say I can't use AI to generate a pixelated image of a 70-year-old man? Like, you can fake your identity. Even video calls in this day and age can be faked. So how do you prove your online identity with any certainty?
That's the thing. I don't know that there is a good way to do it. I think that smarter people have tried, and the multi-factor authentication is going to be one way, but that is not going to solve the AI spoofing stuff. I mean, we talked a lot about AI in previous lugs and previous episodes, but the one thing that I come back to is, like, I have a couple friends who teach professionally, like they're professors, and one's in Canada, one's here in the United States, and even like as of like a couple years ago, even before AI became like this big deal, they were having problems with students turning in papers that were AI generated, and there's a lot of research going into ways of detecting that in terms of like the written word, but the video stuff and the image stuff is going to be a lot harder as it gets better. Now, some of the image generation stuff is still really bad, and you can tell, but it's gonna, I mean, like anything else, is going to get better over time. So yeah, go ahead.
That's got a little food for thought for people. In the past 10, 20 years, we used to spoof MAC addresses and IP addresses. Now we're spoofing identities. What 20 years has done.
Yeah. Bog, I had to mute you. You had some background noises going on, but you can go ahead next. We can hear your fan. We can't hear you. Or background noise or something. Yeah, no voice. Yep, still can't hear you.
Pulse audio user detected.
Drew says pipe wire.
I take that as a compliment.
If you get it working, raise your hand again. We'll give you another try. So we'll blame Drew on the whole AI thing because we kind of went down a rabbit hole there. So let's kind of pull it back to email. So let's unless you guys have anything else to say in the terms of general email, let's go ahead and just talk about clients for a little while because I'm a little bit of a email client nerd, and I desperately miss native clients, and I can't use them because Proton Pass isn't really all that good. And so I just end up using the Proton app on the phone, and I use the webmail app. So for those of you who get to use a email client, what one do you use? What ones have you used? If you've used any good ones in the past, and what's your favorite, and why do you use it, and all that stuff. So, who here uses a native email client, and do you think that there's still a place for native email clients, just in the world, or are we just all stuck with webmail? Anybody want to go? Fraggle, go ahead.
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, I use Neomut now. It's pretty robust. It works well for everything I need to do as far as emails go at home. But I mean, in the past, I've used, obviously webmail clients, Thunderbird, even Microsoft Outlook. That's mostly just for work and everything like that. But and doing like freelance IT and stuff like that. Like I've helped people migrate from older Outlooks to newer versions and stuff like that. And that's not fun. Or every now and then they do something between versions of Outlook that makes it really difficult and not fun to do. But yeah, I'm a sucker for TUIs, and I enjoy it. It's nice, it's clean, it's easy to navigate, it's keyboard centric, and yeah, it just works the best for me. So
Yeah, I miss Neomut. It was always
use
a good
it.
thing. I think that they managed to get Proton Mail working in Neomut in some form or fashion. I just don't know how well it works.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'd have to look into it. Abra, go ahead.
So I personally use Newmut, and I started using it when I saw your video. You made a video, or Matt made a video about Newmut, and I learned from that. And I am using Gmail, and for email client, I am using Newmut in my local machine because I am just basically college student and learning about Linux.
First off, thanks for watching one of my videos. I appreciate that. And man, that video is old.
You make videos? I didn't know.
Well, I make videos. I don't know about you, Drew. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I have used an email client before for the longest time too, from all the way from 1996 all the way to 1999. And that email client is Thunderbird. Yeah, they did exist back in the 90s. And Thunderbird was much better back then than it is now. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, dude, but I'm sorry about that. I was just
that's fine. I had a great comeback. It worked well.
It had to be. So I don't. I use webmail, but I would say I have been thinking about using Thunderbird going forward, and the reason why is a unified inbox. I think that is like the case being made for everything kind of going into one central location. The other part is, something like Thunderbird supports PGP encryption, and so it avoids webmail tracking. And so I think that kind of like lends itself to a reason why you might want to. I think we've had this discussion a lot. Thunderbird may be your only and best hope for a GUI interface on Linux. Is there anything to replace Outlook? I would love it if there was a thing to replace Outlook. I think Thunderbird is our closest alternative. But at the same time, there are people that are just dead set against leaving Outlook for literally anything else. They're so entrenched in that software. But overall, I would say there's some definite reasons why you would want to consider. And by the way, offline, and that's the other part of it. Offline, being able to respond and not have to be completely online in order to view or look or respond rather to, I guess you have to respond. You have to have an internet connection, but at least it could sit in that outbox for a while until your email or your internet connection has been restored. But overall, being able to read and retrieve offline messages is a plus.
Yeah, so there are a few people here that are probably old enough to remember that there used to actually be an outbox in a lot of places because you wouldn't have a constant internet connection. You had to dial out in order to do it. So you would write your email, you were completely offline, and then the next time you listened to your handshake, it would then send your emails. So
is this an ageist thing?
Hey, I'm one of those people, man. I had dial-up for a long time. I would love it if every time I connected to my computer, the handshake just sounded. It would be awesome. But then I'm a nerd, so I think that the Outlook thing is really interesting. I don't think it's just people that are attached to it. A lot of businesses just like, you use Outlook or you don't work here, right? And that's first off, that's I hate that thing, but just a lot of companies just say that because they're so entrenched in 365. Just like if your place of work does Google Apps, you're using Gmail, right?
It's Exchange and calendar sharing. I think that's like the major part of it.
And Thunderbird is, like Steve said, really old. Like, it's been around for ages, and they're just now talking about Exchange support. Just like within the last few months, like they're saying, "Well, it's finally happened." You're older than dirt, and you're just getting there. Like that's like, if people actually want to use this for corporate email, they have to have Exchange support, because like that's where companies use their stuff, and it just hasn't had it. And there have been workarounds over the years, but none of them have stuck around for very long. None of them have been very good or stable, and that's a huge deal when you're wanting to draw in people who aren't just Gmail users. So that has been a problem for a lot of people. Now, luckily, I've never worked for a company that's used Exchange. It's always been Google. I don't know. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's just the way that it's kind of worked out. But for me, I know that Proton does have IMAP available. I just don't know how well it works, or if you can send things through it, or how, why you'd want to use Proton with just regular old insecure IMAP. It seems to defeat the purpose of Proton, but I know that it is available, so you can use native applications without using the Proton bridge. I just don't know how well it works. Drew, go ahead.
So let me just just kind of a side point, but Matt has an xCloud instance, and so in order for our podcast group to use the Nextcloud instance, I set up a Proton mail account so that it sends the authentication and stuff like that. So it is definitely possible. I was able to like create like an account with this like an app specific like password in order for Proton to send our group mail from the server, which is excellent. It's so Proton's a little bit more flexible than people give it credit for.
I'm gonna have to try it because I would like to use a native client again. Although I've kind of gotten used to using it in the webmail. I mean, it's like I used to hate it. Like I hate Gmail's interface. I just can't stand it. And Protons isn't really that much better, but I've just gotten used to it and just kind of resigned myself to actually using it that way. It just lives in a pin tab next to Discord, and it's fine, but I'm not exceedingly happy with it. Like it could be on its own workspace, but I don't want to have a whole nother instance of Vivaldi running. So, Steve, go ahead.
That was quick. But I've been so distracted killing mosquitoes. But when it comes to webmail, I just either open it in Vivaldi's sidebar. I have it open in Vivaldi's sidebar, or I have a web app created with Vivaldi for Gmail. Because guess what? Vivaldi still supports PWAs, whereas Firefox does not. So I have it either on the sidebar or as a web app. That's how I use my. I think about it as an email client because there's no address bar, there's no back, home, or whatever. So I just think about it as a separate client when I use it, and that's how I use it. Simple.
Okay, are there any other things that you guys want to talk about when it comes to email, or are we pretty much beating this horse to death? Is there anything that you guys want to? I tried to come up with a few questions that would lead us into discussions. We kind of had those discussions. So, is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about? Or are we going to end a little bit early today?
What the heck's Vivaldi? That's what I want to know.
It's the best browser in existence, is what it is. Bog, you got something to say?
Closed source, by the way.
Yeah. It's not technically closed source. It is source available.
Spyware.
Okay.
Just kidding.
It's fine. Raising your hand after you've spoken is a new tactic. You want to go ahead and say something else? Go ahead. I'll take that as a no. Okay. Anybody else? Going once? Twice? Okay, so I think that we'll go ahead and end there. It's a little early, but that's okay. No sense in jumping into one of our other topics. We'll just go ahead and save that for the next time. So, for those of you who watched us live, thank you so very much for joining us. We do really appreciate it. We do a LUG twice a month. This is the early one, obviously. We usually go for an hour and a half to 2 hours or so. You can obviously just watch us in the live stream. We always stream it. Or you can join the LUG with the link that I share usually at the same time. So either way, some people just join and don't say anything, which is also perfectly fine. Or you can, if you have a microphone, you can hop in and give your 2 cents on whatever it is we're talking about. The second one is a later version on the fourth Thursday of every month at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be in 2 weeks' time. Usually about a week beforehand, I'll put out a poll so we can choose what the topic is. So if you want to participate in that, you can do so as well. So thanks everybody who watched us live. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.